What is the long-term value of Marvel Dragons from Uprising? Are they going to rise to the moon? Are they going to fall down to whatever place you want them to fall down to so you can buy more? Or are they going to do nothing? Are they just going to kind of sit there and feel it out? That's what we're talking about today here on Master Set Madness Uprising Edition. This is case number 22. 22. Yes, that's right. We're on case number 22. We still need 4 cards for our set, and we will find them. We will find them. That is the goal. And I'll start off by saying, so we're talking, value. We're talking about long-term value of dragons. I guess you could think about it a little bit whether or not you should buy one now or not. But I do want to start off that whole conversation by saying, you see, that's not the right one though, right? We're looking for the Marvels. And we're gonna find, I hope we find a couple in the video today. Oh, hold on, Marvel Dragons. We don't have time to talk about that because we got those cold foil peaks coming out. And oh, we have not seen a peak in a while. We've not seen a peak in a while. Like, what's going on here with this? Is that her? I don't know. Anyways, we got our first legendary of the case here, Cold Foil Coronet Peak. Not the Tiger Strike Shuko that we are looking for, but we're gonna find it, don't worry. As I was saying, this is a discussion, right? So I want this to be a discussion. This is not gonna be me just telling you exactly what you should or should not do. So make sure that, after you've listened to the whole thing, leave a comment on why you think I am right or wrong, or what you disagree with, what you think it's going to go up or down. Marvel Dragons are going to kind of stay the same. I'm probably going to miss some points that you should consider, that I should consider, just because, when I'm flipping through cards like this, it's hard to keep talking when you're looking at all these cool, beautiful cards from Uprising, and you got those cold foils that jump out at you. Anyways, let's get on to it, okay? So make sure you leave a comment, let me know what you think. I think an interesting way to start this conversation, and one that I don't hear too often, I guess maybe I don't listen to every financial channel, but I think something you should start with is asking, questions that you can ask about any card, right? So not specifically just the Marvel Dragons, but that's the context we'll put it into today. And I think one of the first things you should do is ask yourself, do you want this card? Like, pause on the whole, how much is it worth now? What's it going to be worth in the futures? Start at the beginning. Do you actually want the card? And then ask yourself why. Right? So why do you want the card? Or why don't you want the card? And you're just thinking about it purely from a financial perspective. And then you get a little deeper, right? You ask, okay, so will you want this card 5 to 10 years from now? And again, the question why. Now I say 5 to 10 years because this whole conversation, we're talking long-term value, right? We're not talking about next month, we're not talking about 3 months from now, we're not talking about yesterday, next week, any of that jazz. Long-term perspective, okay? So again, anything I say here, it is not about whether you should try and get these and flip them or whatever, stuff like that, okay? Long-term value, you gotta be thinking in the long time frame. So yeah, that first question, do you actually want the card? For me, I look at them and I think, yes, I do want them. Of course I want them for my master set. We're doing this whole big collection piece and you want to have one of every card. But the longer those cards have been around, the more I have come to enjoy them. The more I've come to enjoy the way they look, the design, the feel. Originally when they came out, I was pretty excited. I thought, these are cool. These are awesome, right? But I didn't think they were like, there's up to my, let's find the good one of you today. I wasn't like, these are the absolute best cards I've ever seen. Okay, so that was not my initial reaction. But they've grown on me. Like, the more I've seen of them, get out of here, Frostburn. The more I've seen of them, especially the Tumulti one, it's like, this card looks really good. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous card. I want it in my collection. I want to have a play set so that if I ever do play Draconic Illusionist, I would like to have those at least as an option to throw in the deck or on the side using one of those fancy little cards with the check mark. So I keep nice and safe. So I do want those cards. And then, you know, moving on to the next question, like, you know, why? I guess I just said why. But is that going to change kind of going forward? Is there going to be something different in the next 5 to 10 years where it's kind of going to be like, yeah, it's fun for now, but long term doesn't really matter to me. The old Helios Mitre, that is cold foil number 2 for the box 1 here. A little less exciting than the first headpiece we got, but we'll take it. We're not going to burn it. We're not going to burn it. And get those back in the frame. Awakening. Should be looking at the camera, not just the cards, right? And so I guess, you know, like one of the things you think too is like, are those cards going to be something that's going to be replaced in the future? Like functionally, is it something that's going to be replaced? Are you going to just not want it anymore because, you know, something else cooler is going to come along and you kind of like it now because it looks cool, but Illusionist is not really your thing, Draconic Illusionist anyways. Or, you know, kind of reversing that is one of the reasons right now that you're not super excited about it, just because there are other cards you want more. That's in the box 1. Hopping in here to box 2. And so sometimes, like we can undervalue a card or a type of card, not because we don't like it, but because we're thinking about that other legendary or that other fabled, that cold foil fabled that we just can't find. And so you're not even like the Marvels are kind of, they're just in the background because there's something else even bigger that you want. I know these are good questions to ask, and you're probably thinking, well, that doesn't solve the answer yet. Burn them all again. Double burn them all. Keep that one coming. It doesn't yet. These are all just things that you start to think about, and the reason why is that unfortunately, oh, Thamai, there it is. We'll get to that answer in a second here. Thamai, there is our first Marvel Dragon of the case. Hopefully just the first, right? Gorgeous. These cards are great. They're so good. If you don't have any yet, you just gotta go look at one. You just gotta go look at one. They are cool. And I've got too much stuff here. The reason you want to think through these questions, and not just for yourself though, right? After you ask yourself, you think about what about other people? How do they feel about it? Is because usually we are not as unique in our thoughts and ideas as we think we are, right? And so if you are feeling about a certain card in a certain way, you're having certain ideas about it, you're probably not the only one. And of course, that doesn't really have any, it can't give you any real reflection on what percentage of other people think that, or, you know, that kind of a thing. But at least gives you the idea that, you know, there's probably somebody else who really likes these cards, or vice versa, depending on what it is. You can think, you know what, there are probably a lot of other people who they kind of like the way the card looks, but they're like, yeah, but there's so many other things I'd rather get before it. And so then you're kind of asking the question, well, you know, is that just a short-term thing and then eventually people are going to want to come back to the card, or not? Who knows, right? And so, like, another kind of question, for me, I answer is, how many do you want, right? Are these kind of cards where people just want to have one of each? That all you got? That's all you need? Just want to have one to have one? Do people want play sets of them? Do they want to have a play set and a set in their binder? I think for me, like, you know, if money's not an issue or anything like that would be kind of the nice minimum, would be to have one set that's set aside in the binder, one set that's an actual play set then on the side that you can use, and then, I mean, some of these, especially the Tumulti, like they're so good looking, that would actually be pretty fun to have some graded versions of it. I don't do a lot of grading. I haven't done any grading yet, but I mean, it'd be pretty cool to have some 10s, 9.5s, 9s, all those things. Oh, the old erase face is back. It is back in town, halfway through box 10 here almost. But it's a good question to ask, because sometimes, you know, what do other people feel like? Because sometimes you like a card, and you know what? Not everybody else really likes it that much. Right? So for me, and you can check just based on prices, right? So for me, an example would be like the foil Thaw. I love the foil Thaw. I love the Thaw card. I love the art on it. But I gotta be honest with myself, right? That card's just not rocking it. It is not rocking it. Doesn't matter how cool the art is, how cool the playmat is. It's just not that exciting of a card. And you know, yeah, I could go buy, I could go buy a lot of them. Is it worth it? Probably not. Probably not. Anyways, so then kind of moving on from that is the question of how rare is it? And you know, if you've been watching, you can just go back and see actual examples for how rare these cards are. The dragons, they're far less rare than the Marvel equipment, at least particularly if you're counting the rare dragons here. They come up quite a bit. You're probably getting one in every case at least. I've had 3, I want to say I've even had 4 in a case, kind of more like 1 a box. So they're not super rare in that sense. But again, if people want 3 of them, and then there's 9 of them, you know, you can do the math. You can do the math. This is not a math channel from my end anyways. I'll leave that for you guys. I'll leave that for you. But the Majestic ones, I had a little bit of a miscalculation on how rare the Majestic dragons were. The first, I almost thought I had something there. So like the first 11 cases that we opened here for Uprising, we hit 5 of them. We have 5 of them, and I was like, whoa, you know, like, you know, these are awesome, and check out the price, and they're all over the place, like almost 1 in every other case. And then in the last 10 cases, we only hit 1. Only hit 1. And so that kind of brought me at least back to reality of remembering I didn't miss it. I did not miss Fog Down this time. Remembering that these are actually pretty rare, right? So at least from my experience, that's 6 in 10 cases. So, sorry, 6 in 21 cases. Said that wrong. So you're not getting that every day, right? You got to be opening a fair amount of product if you want to be finding the Marvel Dragons. But of course, I do like to remind people that rarity alone by itself doesn't matter, right? So just something being rare that in and of itself does not mean that it should be super high valued, right? And a lot of times we do kind of use that, we use that argument. I even kind of was talking about that in the last video with Cold Foil Fables. But cards can be super rare and not be super valuable, right? It's the context really matters as to how much do people actually want those cards. Now we got plenty of extended art commons in this set here. But look at this double cold foil legendary case. It is Alluvian Constellas, just like we talked about in the last, wow, I mean, double cold foil, that's pretty amazing here. We were talking about it in the last case we opened. You know, we got the crown and the flame scale furnace. I said, well, yeah, sometimes though you're gonna have the case where it's the opposite and you get the other end of legendaries. Fortunately though, these are the cold foil ones. So yeah, that's not bad. That is not bad, the double cold foil legendary case. We're gonna try for 3. You're on box number 3. I wish we could get some of these cold foil legendaries in Uprising, or sorry, Dynasty. Man, like, we've opened 2 in 17 cases. of Dynasty, and here's 2 in the same case. I don't know what's happening in Dynasty. That is another story for another video, the Dynasty video. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, these dragons are pretty rare. And of course, you know, half of the rarity conversation is not just how rare is it to actually open it from a box or from a pack, but half of that conversation is, well, how many boxes are there? And of course, we don't know that. We don't know that, and it's not out of print yet. So, you know, that's just one of those things you're never gonna know. Well, we might know. They have been sharing, you know, print runs. They used to be LSS. So I don't know if they're gonna keep doing that forward or not. But even then, it's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a while before you actually know that. Like years, I would assume. So for now, we just don't know. And then all that kind of comes back then to when you're looking at a card, any card, Talking Dragons today, what is the potential downside and upside for these, right? And so the potential downside is more important than the upside, right? So if you're thinking like those fancy people do, the fancy big money people, you really got to focus on what's the downside, like what's the worst case scenario if I get into these, if I buy a bunch of these. Because, you know, the best case scenario for, hopefully for a lot of, you know, any kind of thing like this is it could go forever, right, to the moon. Probably not. It's probably not going to be worth more in your house, right, or your car, or well, a lot of other things. Anyways, oh man, lots of the rare ones. We need more marbles. The point is though, so like, it's interesting looking at the marble dragons. Like they've been moving around quite a bit in the last few months. They've swapped positions for which ones are more valuable and less valuable. Domina is interesting. I don't remember if I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but like, you know, Domina's been just moving around. She's at the bottom right now on the list there for TCG player. There's our cold foil, the cloak. The cloak, we've seen you before. But she was not for a while. She was right up at the top for value on them. She's moved around, so like we've seen that, I guess for the Marvel Dragons, kind of that 200 to 100-ish range is a pretty decent range on it. And so for some of them, you can look at to multi. It's got that potential downside, of course, to 100, but you know, there's no like, there's maybe a magic line, but a magic line. Like they could go below 100, right? They could go way below 100. It is a possibility. It definitely is a possibility. And of course, it not being sealed product, you know, when it's not sealed product, it doesn't have that extra little layer underneath to help. Like single cards can go anywhere. They can go anywhere. I'm not saying that the likelihood of one of these cold foil marbles going to 0 is very high. Probably never going to go to 0, of course. But there's that potential that you could lose a lot more getting the majestic marbles, let's put it this way, than the rare ones, right? The downside on the rare ones is quite a bit lower. Probably the upside is quite a bit less. But a card going down from 20 has a little bit less room to go than a card at 200. Okay, or even when you're looking at the 3 different Marvel Dragons, you know, the one that's at 120 can't go down as far as the one that's at 200. And yeah, it's interesting too, because if you look at the I'll rewind. I haven't seen the reverse on that for a while. If you look at the non-marble versions, Domina's actually at the top. So I don't know, it's a little weird that she's at the bottom, especially because I think the art for Domina is better than, oh, what's his face here? The one we opened over here. Optimi. Yeah, I like Domina's art better. Optimi is just a little bit dark, coloring. Optimi is a little dark in my opinion too, but the bottom, of course, really lights it up. And then Tumulti is just like perfect. So it doesn't surprise me that Tumulti is the most expensive one from an art perspective. And so part of this, again, process thinking downside, upside is thinking about, so what could happen in the future with these dragons? Like, what are possible events? Again, of course, you know, I'm not focusing too much on will this game last forever, will not last forever, you know, yada yada. But, you know, asking questions like, you know, will reprints hurt these cards? And the answer for me is, you know, of course, probably not on this one, since, you know, a regular version of Tumulti is what, $3-4? It's been up to like $5 or $6 at some points. And the Marvel one's at $200, so it really has no, it doesn't have any bearing if they print as many other ones as they want. It's not going to affect the Marvel version of it. Same for, you know, all the rest of them. It's just, it's not really attached. It's not like the rainbow foil of surgical extraction and how that goes up or down with the value of surgical extraction, whether based on how much it's been printed. So I don't see that match. Tome of Firebrand. We're not checking anything off our list. That is box 3. Box 4, you are our only hope. It's really rough getting cards off this list. Yeah. There's another question is, will this be playable in 5 to 10 years from now? It seems like the way that Fab is doing things, that the goal is that you don't lose a bunch of cards, right? You don't have this wild rotation system where now you can't play with half your stuff. So as long as there's a Draconic Illusionist to play, and as long as, well, you don't print so many dragons that the old dragons don't feel worth it anymore, or like, you know, the Illusionist that you can play doesn't have some like totally different strategy. I don't know. You never know what's going to happen, right? And then, I mean, I guess the next question with that, well, does the playability even matter? Like, is this the kind of card, are these the kind of cards where playability is something you're really concerned about, or is it more the collecting side of it that matters? And I think the dragons have pretty good mix of both. The ability to be something that's meaningful and something you want to play, but also like just the collectability factor of them is, they're pretty good. There's that thaw, there's that foil thaw you want. If you have foil thaws you do not like, you can send them to me and I will hold on to them and I will treasure them because it's gorgeous. Oh man, it's gorgeous. Love it. I love that one. Beautiful card. And then, so another question too is like, you know, will people just move on from the dragons, right? It's so easy, you know, the first time it came out, it's like, wow, this is amazing. The first Marvels, it's exciting. It's just awesome, right? Still now, people are still pretty excited about them. Like, they're still moving. The prices are going up on a fair amount of them. And, you know, I mean, there's only been one set though in between. But as the next set comes and the next set comes and the next set comes, like, you know, are these the kind of cards that people are going to look in their binder and say, yeah, I'd actually rather get rid of this card so that I can get the new stuff? Or, you know, yeah, it's a cool card to look at, but I don't play with it and do anything with it. I don't know, these are things to think through as you're evaluating any kind of card. Because I think if you look at just the numbers, you're gonna miss stuff, right? If you were just looking at the numbers of Heart of Fyendal a couple months ago, seeing it hit that like 150 mark, you would have missed thinking through some of the other ideas of, you know, and I guess a big one on that one's how rare is it, right? Like, this card is so rare, and you can play it, and it can potentially be playable on all sorts of different things. And there's probably not going to be another card quite like that printed in the next 10 years. There might be, but probably not. Not a bad buy at 150, right? But that question of, yeah, will people just move on from a card? I mean, just look at the legendaries from the first few sets. like, I mean, originally, man, price on all of those to start was like, this is great. You know, I mean, I remember all of them being way, way up there. Of course, some were better than others, but now a lot of people have moved on from specific ones for a lot of reasons, right? One of the reasons being, well, there's not 4 classes anymore, so you got a lot more options, which means, you know, a lot less people are going to choose one of those 4, and they're going to choose other things. Or new equipment comes out, you don't need that specific piece anymore. It's maybe not the best piece to use anymore for that character. Or for some, it's like, well, you know, there's that generic piece that matches with the other piece, and I'd rather just play this super awesome generic piece. Yeah, I mean, so there's that idea of like just thinking through, you know, ooh, Insidious Chill foil, almost missed that because I was distracted. You know, are people gonna get bored of the dragons? People just gonna kind of move on? And I think, I mean, it's a good question. It's tough to know how does everybody else feel, of course, but you can look at it yourself. You can look at it with yourself and ask yourself the question, like, you know, I was super excited about it 6 months ago, but do I really care anymore about it? Would I be okay just trading it off for something different? Is it going to be the kind of card that in 10 years you're thinking like, yeah, man, I really wish I'd kept on to that, or I really wish I'd bought a few of them? You know? No, these are all things to think about, because at the end of the day, really, nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to be printed in the future, not printed in the future. Nobody knows how many of these are going to be out there. So you have to start asking questions that you can answer and make your decision off that, right? So a little bit different, like this is a different conversation than the ones that I usually hear people talking about. What's the long-term value of this, that? Maybe not, maybe it's the same. So I think, you know, kind of at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what's the downside risk? Compare it to the upside, right? So if the potential upside you feel is like, we're only gonna get up to quelling slippers, no, not worth it, right? But if you feel like long-term, like the game's around in 10 years and people are playing Draconic Illusionist, they're gonna wanna have that original foil, cold foil Marvel Dragons. This is our last pack. I mean, that's a pretty potential big upside. But I think it's important too to ultimately ask yourself, do you want this card? Do other people actually want the card? Just Icelander. Now how to come to a decision. So that's the end of box number 4. Let's check out the price. So in today's case, where we got 2 cold foil legendaries, we hit a total of $156. So quite a bit lower than our last case. Yeah, you just got to get the right legendaries. Impressive though, getting 2 cold foils in the same box. And our Lonely Marvel of the case. Oh man, we got 3 in the last one. We only got 1. Lonely Thamai. Cool looking card though. So coming back to the dragons, again, we're thinking about the long term. I think in the short term, there's going to be plenty of them. If the prices get too crazy anytime soon, there's going to be a lot of Uprising boxes that people are going to want to be cracking open to find them, sell them, the prices will come back down. But in the long term, they do seem like the kind of card that people are going to want to have. They're going to want to collect them. They're going to want to have them to have the play set. I'm probably leaning to there's more upside than downside on these. Like I said at the beginning, I want it really to be a discussion, not just me telling you, yep, I think it's gonna go to the moon, or nope, I think it's gonna go nowhere. So let me know, what do you think? What's your view on the Marvel Dragons? Is it a good investment long-term? Is it something you shouldn't be thinking about investing at all? Should you just buy it because you like it and it's a fun thing to play with? Let me know your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Come back for Master Set Madness the next round. We have to find those 4 cards. We will get there. Hopefully, because who knows, right? Thank you so much for joining the journey. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss what's coming up with Outsiders. It's gonna be here soon and it's gonna be great. See you all next time.